Hey, it's Curtis Calhoun with LowKickMMA, and today I'm joined by UFC flyweight Jeff Molina coming off his fight of the night performance against Aori Qileng at UFC 261. Jeff, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You had a heck of a weekend, as we briefly mentioned off the air. Like you've said before, you've never been in a boring fight at all. And how are you feeling just a few days removed from that fight?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. The 50 Gs definitely makes it a little sweeter. The bonus was nice. Not the type of performance I want to have. Not too happy with the performance, but man, I'll take it for the debut, and I'll only learn from this and get better.
What were some of the challenges that he presented to you? Because for the weight class, he's definitely a bigger guy, and it seemed like he was using his range early. What were some of the challenges, and was there anything surprising about his approach?
Yeah, we kind of knew exactly what he was going to do, and I'm glad we did. I'm glad there was no really surprises in his style. We knew he was going to try to walk me down.
Right.
We knew he was tall, long, had a good sense of range. That was probably the biggest thing, is that we knew he had a really good sense of range. I guess something that did surprise me was his ability to get out of the way of those low kicks, man. That was a huge part of the game plan for this fight, was to go early and often, and that didn't get a really good job of butt scooting out of those, barely getting out of the way. And again, it's because of the way he would march people down. He's not super heavy on the front foot, so it's easy for him to kind of step his lead foot back, or his rear foot back, and get out of the way of those low kicks. So that was kind of frustrating. But man, I feel like, so I'm not happy with the performance really at all. But the one thing I am happy with in my performance is that my ability to adjust in the heat of battle. I think that's a very undervalued, underrated, not really talked about thing in the sport that the really good guys do. Not saying that I'm one of those. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but people like Henry Cejudo, the fight that comes to mind is Cejudo versus Marias in that first round. He had to make an adjustment. The really good guys can do that in a fight, in the middle of a fight. And that's pretty difficult to do. Like the names that come to mind are the John Joneses, the Demetrius Johnsons. They adjust mid-fight based on what's happening. And I think I did a pretty good job at that. In between the first and second round, I think the cameras picked it up, but I look at James and I'm like, tell me what to do. Because in my head, I'm thinking my primaries aren't working. The low kick, which was such a big part of the game plan, wasn't working. So I look at him and I say, tell me what to do, or something along those lines. And he tells me what to get rid of. He's like, let's get rid of the low kick. Let's get rid of this. And let's add this, this, and that. And man, that played a huge factor in the fight. Everything he said, I did. And it won me the fight. And I'm $50,000 richer.
Right. Absolutely. Take us through that final exchange, because it was absolutely wild. I remember watching the fight and just going crazy watching that final exchange. It definitely brought back memories of Holloway versus Ricardo Lamas a few years ago. Can you give us kind of an insight as to how hurt you were at the end of the fight, if at all, and what was that like?
Yeah. To preface this, I'm an idiot for doing that. I'm a huge believer in visualization, and I've visualized pretty much every possible scenario you can going into a fight thousands and thousands of times. That scenario where I point to the ground, bite down on my mouthpiece, drop my head, and start throwing bombs, I pictured at least 100 times in the last 10 weeks. Every single time I pictured it, I got fucked up. And it wasn't any different on Saturday. Man, I was pretty hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Probably the most hurt I've ever been in a fight. It just wasn't smart. In a round where I'm clearly dominating, 10-8ing, odds at 50-50. When you do that, man, when you just point to the ground, drop your hands, and just start winging hooks and overhands, it puts the odds at 50-50. And why even risk that? That's it on one hand. On the other hand, it might have won me a bonus. So I'm not sure if it makes the brain damage a little more worth it. To win a fight of the night, it has to be pretty back and forth. The 10-8 was completely dominant on my aspect, or on my end, until the very end. So maybe that back and forthness where I point to the ground and say, fuck it, let's do it. Let's see who backs up first. Maybe that won me the 50K. Maybe it didn't. I'm just going to learn from this. And I talked to my coach, James Krause, and I'm never doing that again. I always known I know I have that dog in me, dude. I've been doing this since I was 14. I used to go to school with headache every day from getting punched in the face. So I know how to fight, man. I know I have that dog in me. People think I have that sexy, slick sniper style, and I do for sure. But I also have that dog, man. I know how to fight. So it was cool. And like I'm not just a fancy striker. I'm not to shit on Anthony Pettis, but I'm not just a guy who's very one-dimensional as far as like, if you pressure me, I'm gonna fold, and that's not the case, man.
What was your family's reaction to the fight afterwards?
Man, my they were the first people I FaceTimed after the fight.
Right.
Everything was pretty hectic backstage, but as soon as they took us back to the hotel, I FaceTimed them, just let them know I'm good. My dad is fighting kidney cancer right now, so he couldn't come out to my fight, which he really wanted to. But man, they were just on cloud nine. They were stoked, man. I mean, they've seen the sacrifices firsthand. They've also sacrificed a lot for me with the sport. So that was really cool to get that love from them and see the reaction. And my mom was crying on the FaceTime, just telling me how proud she is of me. And that means a lot, man. My mom has sacrificed a lot to put me into the sport. I remember growing up, they pretty much had to work like a second job just to pay for my gym membership. So it's really cool, and I know one day I'll be able to pay them back. And 50 G's definitely helps do that, man. But I want financial freedom from the sport, and I want to be a world champion. And I know those two things go hand in hand with being able to pay my parents back.
Right. Tell me a little bit about that, especially with everything that your family's going through, and specifically with your dad. What was that moment like afterwards? Just speaking with your dad, and just kind of give us an insight as to what that conversation was like.
Yeah, it was, again, something I had pictured a thousand times. It was like in my head, I saw that same scenario where I FaceTime him and I let him know I'm good. Not too much damage besides the last 10 seconds. And just the ability to thank him for everything, and then also seeing how proud of me they are, man. Like my dad, when he's at work, he's always bragging to his coworkers. If he goes to a gas station, he'll start talking to the guy just to tell him about me, man. Like little things like that is super fucking cool, man. I got a bunch of fans in Kansas City that I've never met before, but just know me because of my dad. There's multiple stories I could tell of like me going to the bank and using the little ATM, the video teller's like, "You're Jeff Molina," and I'm like, "Oh fuck, like this is cool, man." Like he's like, "Dude, your dad tells me all about you. I watch all your fights. I saw your contender series." Like things like that, man, is super cool. So the talk I had with my dad after the fight just it meant a lot. And it's just it's awesome, man. It's awesome.
And speaking of conversations, did you get a chance to speak with Dana White right after the fight? And if so, what was that conversation like, just coming off of your UFC debut?
Yeah, I didn't personally get to speak to him. I was in the middle of an interview when we kind of crossed paths.
Right.
But my coach did, and he just he told my coach that it was a impressive performance and that I'm a scrapper. What was really cool was at the ceremonial weigh-ins, I got to talk to Dana. I had seen an interview where he talked about how he's so excited to have fans back, and that he usually watches the early prelims at like in a room instead of like live at the event.
Yeah.
But that he might change that for this one just because fans are back and wants to experience that. So at the ceremonial weigh-ins, I weighed in first, and then I kind of tapped him on the shoulder and I was, "Hey man, I overheard that you usually watch the early prelims from a room." And I was like, "Man, you're not gonna want to miss this one. You're not gonna want to do that for this one." And he's like, "Oh, okay, kid. I'll see you out there." I'm not sure if he actually got to watch that one live, but it was cool, kind of giving him the notice, like, "Man, this is not gonna be a boring fight. This is gonna be a barn burner. This is gonna be a scrap."
And then you make the call out in your Octagon's interview with Joe Rogan for the 50 grand, and you end up getting it. What was that experience like? And do you have any plans as of right now for what you're going to use that money on?
That wasn't planned. So I talk about visualization a lot. I was pretty rocked at the end of the fight, man. So about the 15 minutes after the fight, 15, 20 minutes, I wasn't really about my wits quite yet. We actually had to hold off on the first interview for a little bit just to kind of get it back. So I don't really remember. I remember talking to Joe, but not really what I said. And afterwards, I'm like, dude, did I sound stupid? And they're like, no, man, you sounded pretty coherent. So yeah, it was just that was like just going off intuition. Like
Right.
none of that was planned, but it was cool. It was sick. And as far as what I want to do with the money, I'm fortunate enough to have James Krause as a coach and mentor. And not only is he an MMA wizard, but a financial guru. And it's really cool to have someone like him who also has come not from much. You know, I don't come from much. So a lot of fighters, when they see 50 grand on a check, they just go out and buy something stupid that depreciates and don't really keep in mind that, you know, you got like 14% in taxes, you got 10% to your manager, you got 10% to your gym, and they don't take all that into account. And next thing you know, they owe the government money. So I'm not going to be that guy. Again, fortunate to have someone like James who's gonna tell me what to do with it, man. I want passive income from this. I'm going to probably put it into real estate or something along those lines, and I got the man to help me out with that.
Speaking of which, I actually spoke with your teammate Gina Mazzani last week. Just kind of give us an insight, like the impact that James Krause has had on your career and being there at Glory MMA.
Yeah, James, man, it's hard to put into words what that man has done for me, man. I don't want to say he single-handedly has changed my life, but he single-handedly changed my life, you know.
Right.
He's man, just a great person, a great coach, and leads by example, man. And that's huge. It's huge. He's a guy that leads the pack from the front, as far as not only is he teaching practices, but he's doing the practices. He's doing the live rounds. He doesn't skip around. He's in Vegas 6 weeks in a row, spending time away from his family for us. He puts in dozens and dozens of hours with us, aside from the practices. So just one-on-ones with personal sessions, and also running real estate. I think he has dozens of investment properties and rentals, and the businesses. He owns 3 gyms and does all that on top of the training, on top of the coaching, on top of going to Vegas 6 weeks in a row. The dude is just super inspiring on all fronts, man. And not only is he doing all that stuff, man, but he's taking fights on 24 hours notice.
Right.
He's fucking going up a weight class, fighting on a week's notice on Fight Island, like things like that, man. It's like, I would take a bullet for that guy, man. And I would go to battle with him any day. Right. And anything he tells me to do, I do, no questions asked.
And being a young fighter in the UFC, what's kind of some advice that he's given you about handling the limelight? Because obviously he's had those experiences being in the octagon, but also I remember him being on The Ultimate Fighter and just watching him through that. So what's kind of some words of wisdom that he's given to you through this process?
Man, James, he's one of those guys that if I have a question about anything, I'll text him, and I get an almost immediate response, which is crazy because the dude's constantly busy. But man, he's kind of just told me to be smart. I'm not really one of those guys that's out there. You know, I'm not like Mike Perry or some of these other guys, but I'm pretty, I want to say I'm cerebral about the game, man. I've been doing this since I was 14. I study this. This is, I've been obsessed with the sport since I was 14. So you hear people that are like, oh, I've been doing this for X amount of years. But when I say doing this, I'm really doing this. Like, there's not a day that goes by where MMA doesn't cross my mind. It's even like this little week I'm taking off from the gym. I'm still in Florida. I wanted to go on a run this morning, but my knees are a little beat up. But like it's things like that. Like, I watched my fight 6 times this morning, and then I rewatched the whole 261 card. I'm obsessed with the sport, man. I study film every day. Like, I really do this. So I think that's why I don't need too much. I don't want to say too much advice as far as like the MMA game, but I for sure have questions, man. And I have the right team and right people around me that when I do have questions, I can ask James Krause or Grant Dawson or Julian Marquez or Jay.
Right.
That everything that I got a good group around me, man. So whenever I do have questions about the debut or what a certain feeling feels like, I can ask them.
And then make your UFC debut in front of the fans on such a historic night, UFC 261. It was the first full capacity UFC event in just a little bit over a year, I believe. Kind of what was that experience like, feeding off of the fans and getting that energy?
It was sick, man. It was super cool. Prior to the fight, when it got announced that it was going to move to Jacksonville, my teammate Julian Marquez, may have heard of him, may have not.
Right. Yeah.
He told me that fighting in front of fans, like, you can get this what he called the cheap pop, and just like drawing from the energy off the crowd. And I've never been one to kind of play into the crowd or anything like that. Like, I'm there to get into a fist fight, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. Most people do, but I was like, hey man, I'll try anything once. So that's something I went into the fight thinking of, was like, he told me, before you get in the cage, just turn around, raise your arm up, and kind of feed off the energy. And I did. And I don't know if I did feel something or maybe not. Maybe it's placebo effect. Yeah, I think I felt something.
Right.
And then same thing with Bruce Buffer was announcing my name. Just kind of, we made like eye contact.
Oh, I think you froze there for a second. Oh, there you are. Oh, I think you're glitching out a little bit. Oh, now you're back. You're good. I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, sweet, bro. But I was saying with Bruce, like, I was just feeding off that energy. I've never been one to kind of believe in that, but I think I did feel something, maybe it's placebo, maybe not, but it was cool.
And then let's kind of talk about what's next, because obviously this the flyweight division has really kind of resurrected itself in a way over the past few years, obviously with the reign of Henry Cejudo, and you got Askar Askarov and Davison Figueiredo and Perez. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. What are your kind of thoughts on the state of the flyweight division, and what is kind of your early prediction for Figueiredo and Moreno coming up at this next pay-per-view?
Man, flyweights are back. It's like the resurgence of the 25ers. I never really understood the whole 25ers are boring thing. But that doesn't matter now, man. I think the world is starting to realize how damn entertaining us small guys are. And man, that first Figueiredo Moreno fight, Jesus, like, fight of the year for sure, or it's up there, like probably the best flyweight fight next to mine. No, I'm joking. Yeah, dude. I've never really understood the hate, but I guess it doesn't matter now.
Right.
There's a new class of flyweights, and I think Mick Maynard's done an incredible job of signing exciting flyweights, people that like myself, who are looking to constantly finish and hurt you, and aren't these boring guys that are just looking to hug you for 3 rounds.
Right.
As far as the Moreno Figueiredo fight, I think it's going to be another scrap. I do prediction wise, I think Moreno takes it this time. I think he's going to make the proper adjustments. I think Moreno is one of those guys that breathes and lives MMA, and not that Figueiredo doesn't, but just that Figueiredo gets pretty big in the off season, man. And I mean, I'm going to talk, I do too, but from what I've heard, little inside knowledge is that Moreno is really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
And Tim Elliott, who's one of my training partners, actually said Moreno is the best flyweight he's ever trained with.
Really?
From having trained with him on The Ultimate Fighter, which is strange because we're teammates, and yeah, I'll talk to Tim about that, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot to a lot to look forward to there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll take Moreno in that, man, but I do think it's going to be a scrap. I just think Moreno's going to make the proper adjustments. He would have lost the first fight had it not been for that strike.
Right.
Or I think it was like a nut shot, yeah. Yeah, but I'll take Moreno in the second round.
And then how quick of a turnaround do you want to make, and when can fans expect you to get back in the octagon? Do you have a specific opponent in mind, if any?
Yeah. I want to stay active, man. I want to fight at least 3 times this year. I was sidelined for 10 months for things out of my control, right? Scheduled for November, opponent caught the bid. January, I caught the bid. So I want to stay active. I got a couple of injuries I got to get checked out that I kind of came into the fight going with. but yeah, I want to stay active as far as who I want to fight. I wanted to call out Jimmy Flick, the winner of Jimmy Flick and Figueroa, but Flick retired and Figueroa got rescheduled with I forgot who, but let's find somebody else. So,
right.
Man, I'd love to fight the winner of Adeshev and Benoit. I was scheduled to fight Zaruk twice, and Benoit. I'm very familiar with the style. I think that's a fun fight, either one of those guys. So I'll take the winner of that one, maybe late July, early August.
Mm-hmm. And before we go, I'll give you the final word to give any shout outs and just tell fans where we can find you on social media too.
Yeah. On social media, _125. That's Instagram and Twitter. And man, just shout out to my teammates at Glory MMA and Fitness, my coaches, James Krause, Jason High, Grant Dawson, Austin Ford. Yeah. And thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Do you want to give a quick sales pitch for why James Krause should be coach of the year?
Sure. Let's do it. James Krause is coach of the year. He has, I believe, a stable of 13 UFC guys inside a small gym in the Midwest. We're not one of these super gyms. This is James Krause is one of these guys that has been in Vegas for 6 weeks straight, cornering a UFC guy from our gym, homegrown, for 6 weeks straight. No other coach has done that. No other coach has put in the time with these guys and shown the amount of improvements James and the team have at that high of a level. So that's why he's coach of the year. And man, we still got a lot of the year left to go, so it's only going to go up from here.
Jeff Molina, as always, we appreciate the time, and congrats again on the win, and we'll talk to you again soon, man.
Thank you, brother.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.